start by acknowledging the passing yesterday of Heavy D, who was certainly a terrific influence on myself and plenty of other people my age during this time, and he certainly will be missed. My life changed in 1979 when my father took me to Dirt Cheap Records, which used to be right over here on the corner of 24th and Union. And he told me to go on and pick a record, any record. First time in my life I'd gotten a chance to pick a record of my own. And I'm walking through the aisles, and my eyes fall upon a sky blue record case that has these kind of colorful, multicolored, flowing symbols, and immediately, I'm thinking, I was 9 years old at the time, I'm thinking about candy. It looks like candy, so I picked that record. We get up to the register, and the man is like, oh, this is a good choice. This is a hot new record out of New York. I'm like, okay, I'm not really thinking about that. I'm just, again, thinking about candy. Can we stop at the store? That's what I'm asking my dad. Turns out that this multicolored logo was the symbol for Sugar Hill Records, and that record was Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang. That record changed my life. As I put it on and played it, I remembered the beat. The beat sounded fairly familiar, but I couldn't really understand why people weren't singing. These cats were just talking. I mean, there wasn't, I'm waiting for some type of melody or some type of something, and I'm just hearing straight rhyme in a non-singing voice. It took me a few minutes to really kind of adjust to it, but by the end of the next day, I knew all the words to the 15-minute B-side version of that song. So that was an impactful time. But I have to say that another impactful time for me was later on in the summer. I want to say would be the spring or summer of '87, when a good friend of mine, D'Amico Parker, was off playing baseball in Ohio. Comes back, and he's got this tape. And at this time it wasn't file sharing, it wasn't Napster, it wasn't iPods or anything like that. It was the box with the two tape decks on it. Is how music was transmitted for a lot of people during that time. So he comes back and he hips me to this jam called Poetry, and I'm like, this is something new. This is something different. I kind of explored a little more, and I find out that there's this group called Boogie Down Productions, and they have this album called Criminal Minded, and I'm interested in what they're saying. I mean, the content was unlike really anything that I had heard to that point, in that it was challenging me. It was making me think in a way that no real form of entertainment had done to that point. And I'm real fortunate to be the age that I am. I was just coming of age in terms of being a teenager and getting a fuller sense of who I was, a little bit of a sense of what I wanted to be when 1988 rolls around and the second album, By All Means Necessary, comes out. And that particular record, for me anyway, was a little bit of a defining moment, in that if the first album made me think, this album really made me think, really made me question things. It made me pay attention to what people were saying, but maybe even more so, it made me pay attention to what people were not saying. And I would challenge anybody to listen to that record, almost 25 years old, and tell me that it is not almost as relevant today, if not more relevant today, than it was back then. Songs like My Philosophy, questioning the state of rap, even during that time. Stop the Violence before violence was even a big storyline within rap. Jimmy, talking about safe sex, right? In this kind of past week, the whole thing about Magic and his 20-year anniversary of announcing that he had HIV. You know what I'm saying? That was 3 years before that was talking about those types of things. So just all across the board. My friends would get in my car at that time and be like, we have to listen to, yeah, you gotta listen to it again. My tape, the tape busted, and I just went out and bought another one. I played it so tough. But I've had a chance to, on one of the movie channels, see a film called I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. And at the end of that film, the star, I highly recommend it, by the way. At the end of that film, the hero, Jack Spade, is saying that, because earlier in the film, his little mentor was saying, a good hero always has theme music. At the end, Jack becomes the hero, and right, who's his theme music but BDP? And I, maybe subconsciously have had that idea in my mind, that Boogie Down Productions, that KRS-One, kind of somewhere in the back of my mind was my theme music. He was talking about being a teacher. I hadn't planned to be a teacher, but I ended up being a teacher. He was talking about philosophy, and when I entered the doctoral program at the University of Washington in education, I had a choice to either get an EDD, which is a doctorate of education, or a PhD, which is a doctorate of philosophy. Obviously, I went with the PhD. And I'm saying that just in the sense of, and I was just saying this back to Chris backstage, just these small ways in which people's influence manifests itself, down the road in people's lives is really the way that you can tell someone has had a lasting mark. And so, I would say that, and during my time in college as an undergrad, had an opportunity, and this is how long he'd been doing it, 20 years ago, when he came and spoke at Santa Clara University, I went and picked him up from the airport. That's how long he'd been doing this. That's how long he'd been sprinkling knowledge on folks like y'all. I think nobody's here to hear me talk, so and I just have to say, it was a thrill back then for me to meet him, and it just as it's a thrill for me now to welcome the man who made knowledge reign supreme over nearly everyone for a long time. It truly is, and I seriously mean that. I seriously mean that. It truly is an honor, a privilege, and a thrill for me to welcome to Seattle Central Community College the one, the only Blastmaster KRS-One.
Look at him. There he is. In the
I'm speaking on this mic. Yeah, here we go. Okay. First of all, it is my complete honor to be here today. I don't say that in some cliche way, some celebrity way. This is truly an honor to be here today. Truly. We got a lot of ground to cover. A lot of ground to cover. This, you guys are free to record this if you have cameras or whatever. You can come up, take pictures of this stuff. I'll go over it as we continue talking as well. I mention that because a lot of people don't want their stuff filmed or recorded in that sense, but this is exactly where we begin the lecture. Right here. Our discussion is on hip-hop. And one thing, I didn't get the lady's name that was introduced, that opened, right. Sharia. You were saying that you didn't know whether this course, whether Dr. Abe's course was the first in Washington State or in the world. And this is where we start right here, because this is the first course in hip hop in the world. In the world. First, recognize where you are and why you are. First of all, let's adjust our consciousness to be able to discuss hip hop. First, rap is something we do. Hip hop is something we live. Hip hop is the consciousness that creates rap music, breaking, MC, or should I say, breaking, MCing, graffiti writing, and DJing. The first core 4 elements. Breaking, breakdancing, MCing, rap music. Graffiti writing, aerosol art, spray can art. DJing, cutting, mixing, scratching of recorded materials. These are the core 4 elements of hip hop. Now, most people approach hip hop as rap music. They say, what you listening to? I'm listening to hip hop. From a scholarly point of view, you can't listen to hip hop. You can't eat hip hop. You can't wear hip hop. You can't go to hip hop. Hip hop does not exist in the physical world. This is the first thing to understand about these 6 letters, H-I-P-H-O-P. They never come into physical existence ever. The only time hip hop becomes physical is when you say you're it. Now, until you become hip hop remains an idea, what we call a collective consciousness, a group idea, a certain social behavior, a cultural uniqueness. This is hip hop, if you're not it. If you're not hip hop is over there for you. It's external of yourself. If you are hip hop is you. You're not looking at any, Biggie or Tupac or any of these people and saying, well, because Method Man rhymes like this, I'm going to rhyme like that. That's not hip hop. Hip hop is, well, Method Man rhymes like that. Let me do better. And notice the attitude. Method Man rhymes like this. Let me do better than that. This is the difference today where you have younger people looking up to icons, saying, wow, you guys from the golden age, Public Enemy, wow, this one, that one, whatever. And the trick to culture is that you don't look down, or should I say, you don't look up on icons, you look down on them. Those who are culture keepers are the foundation of what you do. They are not the zenith of it. To understand hip-hop culturally, you have to be better than everyone you are seeing today and 40 years back. Halt! You're just trying to get the consciousness right here. Culturally, when you're just talking about hip-hop, this is before we enter mainstream, this is before we get commercial, it's before you sell it, this is even before the elements. Just the behavior, the attitude that creates this idea of rapping and so on, this attitude. Now, and let me just get this consciousness right here, and this is important to get right. Icons are foundations. You don't look up to any of hip-hop's icons. You stand on them. And you try to be better. Now, the reason I point this out is because this is how hip-hop began. Most people today begin with science. They say science is the foundation of everything. Wrong. I would argue that culture is the foundation of it, and here's why. Because when we were coming up, it was our culture that created our science, not the other way around. It was who we were that created the science of what we was to repeat. You know, science, you keep repeating and experiment and, you know, hit, does that do that? And this kind of thing. Over time, us just trying to be us created a repetition. We kept doing it over and over again. What does this mean? We say, yo, you need to chill out, man. Say we in 1973. Yo, you need to chill out. Somebody else hears the word chill out. Yo, that's how those people talk. They talk like this. No, this is how those people talk. They talk like this. Yo, man, we need to chill out and just go find a place where we can. So everybody else starts saying, yo, man, we need to, in order to be like them, I should say, yo, man, we need to chill out. And this is why hip-hop looks upon the whole mainstream as corny. Because the original point to hip-hop is to do better than what you see. This is the original point. You give a turntable, we push it back out better. We'll take the wacky song and make it better. We take old music, sample it. You forgot about this music. Matter of fact, rest his soul, James Brown. James Brown was, beyond genius. This man, you know, I would say created and invented, founded an entire genre of music that never really was labeled. We call it soul, but what James Brown was about went off into rock, soul, R&B, reggae. Everybody was influenced by this guy named James Brown. Now I'm deviating for a minute because I want to say his name with respect here as well. This is the first hip-hop course really being given, and I'm going to get back to that in a minute, but I got to give his name respect. James Brown. If you don't know him, look him up. If you do know him, look him up. I mention this because I want to make this point about icons and culture keepers and what they mean to a culture. You look down. This is the foundation. You stand upon. Now you try to do better. In the pursuit of trying to do better, we created the elements of hip-hop. In our pursuit, I'm gonna switch mics. In our pursuit, where did these elements come from? Don't look at this. These are just interpretations for public school education. This here, right? Look, breaking, I'm seeing graffiti on DJ. Now, most people only discuss this. They say breaking, and then they show you breaking. Or MCing, and they give you, show you MCing. What we're discussing here is hip-hop on its scholarly level. And I'm giving it to you right now. Here it is. These elements, just say the first four. The question for the scholar is, what is the cause of hip-hop? How did these elements come to be? Because if we know how these elements came to be, now we can really do better than them. And not better than breaking like you're going to break better than Crazy Legs, but create something else called Giva. Yeah, Giva, G-I-V-A. Nobody know what that is, Giva. What's a Giva? Well, you need to start figuring it out. This is hip-hop. As weird as this word Giva, let me make it sure, Jabalabula. Jabalabula. I'm going down to the park, Ma, and I'm going to be in this Jabalabula. The same way you looking now, what? But Jabalabula. That was how each one of these terms came to the United States. Each one, including this one. Hip-hop. That was like saying, Jabba. That's exactly what I'm, and this is, I'm giving it to you real. It was, Jabba. That's what we sounded like to the United States. to mainstream. They didn't know what these terms were. They had no idea where did they come from. This is why the mainstream didn't know what the terms meant, because they didn't know where they came from. And that's why a lot of people today don't know what these terms mean, because they don't know where they come from. These terms, by the way, first of all, these terms are the latest fact in hip-hop. Hip-hop goes way back to the beginnings of human consciousness. These are the latest terms of hip-hop. Dance, speaking, writing, I would even say, definitely science, I'd say art here. Between this, dance, speaking, writing, which also can be called art, these right here, all of these like this, that's the beginning of human consciousness. Like, just stop for a minute and think about what the first humans did. First. This is what got us started. Now, when you realize, how did we get back to what first humans do? What kind of culture was we living to have to resort to such a primal way to express ourselves? This is what you want to ask. What was the living conditions like that created those elements? What caused them to exist? Well, first, let's start with the word oppression, boys and girls. Oppression, and this is controversial what I'm saying right here. Oppression seems to be the greatest creator of the greatest art. Go back, look in history. The greatest art, or what's deemed to be the greatest art, happens, most of it, happens under immense trauma, immense war, unrest, upheaval, but art comes out of that. The poorest people making the most brilliant sounds. People on their way, just your environment is crazy, but in that craziness you produce this beautiful art. This is all over human history. Hip-hop is no different in this regard. The times were so bad in the 60s. It was so bad in the 60s, I can't even speak of it now. It's unspeakable. They say unspeakable crimes. I can't even speak it. Today, we pride ourselves today on being able to just walk down the street and you don't have to, like, if you're African American, you walk down the street, a white person comes, you don't have to step off onto the sidewalk and let that white person go by law. When you get on the bus, you don't have to sit in the back or give up your seat because someone of another ethnicity got on the bus. This was America. Today, we're all high and mighty today. Internet, cell phone. Let me take you back to rotary phones, really. Let me take you back to 13 channels on the TV. And the 13th one never, worked. I'm saying, you gotta come to this consciousness in order to understand the rest of what I'm gonna say. This time does not reflect hip-hop. It doesn't reflect the causes of hip-hop. We have to discuss a time that no longer exists for you to really understand hip-hop. You have to go back to rotary phones and 13 channels on a television. And if you can't, you're born just to, now. You're too young or something like that. If you can't, then try to imagine the limitation. When you walk outside, you tell your mother, "Bye, Mom, I'll be back in an hour." You walk outside. You on your own. No internet, no cell phones. You on your own. You out in the street. If something happens in your house, you're not going to know till you get home. If something happens to you, they're not going to know till somebody make a call and show up at the door. Try to think on this level, where everything was not told to you. You had to ask questions. Today you could go on a computer and go, Google, tell me any goddamn thing I want to know. Now what does this do? Look at this. Gotta get your consciousness right. Today, we can know anything on a phone. Anything on a phone. And people are dumber today than they was 20 years ago. Look at this. Look at this. We have more information and people know less about the world. So now you gotta ask yourself about this new environment that we're entering. Me, I enjoy technology to the fullest of the law. I mean, when BDP Boogie Down Production started, to my credit, we were the first group to use digital audio tape. My record company didn't even know what I gave them. They had no idea what I gave them, a digital tape. It was like, what, you didn't return, where's your album? But my point is that technology is great to have. But looking at this from a scholarly point of view, we're discussing hip-hop, we're discussing the consciousness you have to have in order to even discuss hip-hop. Can you go back to a rotary phone? Can you go back to turntables? You know, can you go back? So here we go. Once your consciousness is right, and what's the right consciousness? The right consciousness is, first of all, understand that the technological world makes things easy for you. And because things are easy for you, it is harder for you to self-create. It seems that when we are pressured or given a challenge, we then find out who we really are. Without the challenge, without the fight, without the fear, and overcoming it with courage, we never find ourselves. There's no way to turn the human being on. This is physics. The only reason we have muscles is because of gravity. If there was no gravity, you'd be mush. But because something is pressing against you, and you, trying to grow and live, are pressing back, you create yourself. Self-creation is the first lesson to learn, to have a mind to study hip-hop. And understand what I'm saying. The mind to study hip-hop, to perform it, practice it, even master it, first, that mind, well, first of all, that mind has to be free. I skipped over all that. So I'm hoping you get it. But if your mind is free, then what? You're free to what? Self-create. And this means that the challenges that are in your life right now, if you look at it from a hip-hop point of view, this is your degree for real. Your errors in life are not errors. Your mistakes are not mistakes. Your shortcomings and weaknesses are your degrees to teach others. Nobody wants to hear from anybody who hasn't been through something. How are you going to tell me to stop drinking if you never took a drink yourself? So look at the consciousness. To approach this, your life is the classroom. And the errors and the stumblings that you go up with, these are your degrees. Why do I say that? All of these are our errors. These are all hip-hop errors, meaning mistakes. These are not victorious breaking, break dancing. These are errors. And I'm going to go through the errors in a minute, but first the consciousness. To approach hip-hop, you're approaching self-creation. If you're in it for any other reason, you will fail. Self-creation. That is the point to hip-hop. Why is that the point? Well, when we first started, 1973, August 11th, the address was 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx. A woman named Cindy asked her younger brother, a guy who used to write Cool as Clyde. And, Clyde went out with his system, and he wasn't really a good DJ, he was really a graffiti writer and a b-boy. Now stop. Kool Herc is the father of hip-hop. This guy I'm talking about, Cool as Clyde. This is the father of hip-hop, Kool Herc. But he was breaking before hip-hop began. Okay. Kool Herc, a b-boy already, 1973. Graffiti writer already, 1973. His sister says, start DJing for my birthday party. August 11th, they write on index cards. Put in your mind an index card. They write the address and the time and date of the party. Now imagine, they had to put out about 1,000 index cards. Each one was handwritten. Sitting at home, index cards. No Kinkos. No, run up the block and you get, nope. Self-creation. There used to be a saying called bloom where you're planted. Wherever I'm planted, that's where I will bloom. So Kool Herc, or Cool as Clyde, he comes out on August 11th, 1973. He starts playing music. The times in which he's playing this music at 1527 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx, 1520, the corruption in New York City is at an all-time high. Police corruption is ridiculous. You guys are in college, you can look it up. The healthcare, medical, justice department, you name it, it was disgusting. All of this, just crazy. Now, Kool Herc, now ask yourself this is hip hop. Drugs everywhere, crime everywhere, police corruption everywhere. Melly Mel wrote a record, broken glass everywhere. People pissing on this thing. Talk. But somehow this one guy says, I'm gonna play music in the park for free. Starts playing James Brown. Now stop. Kool Herc first, Cool as Clyde, graffiti writer, Cool DJ Herc, not DJ Kool Herc. Cool DJ Herc. This guy, playing James Brown records, attracts about 1,000 people to his party. The party in the building was 25 cents. 25 cents get into a Kool Herc party. I was 8 years old at the time. I lived in the next building, 1600 Sedgwick Avenue, the Bronx. 1973, I'm 8 and my brother Kenny is 7. We couldn't go to the park. We couldn't go to the community center for 25 cents. And we couldn't afford 25 cents. In addition, Kool Herc was sort of like a street dude. And understand what I'm saying. In the 60s, when the Black Panthers disbanded, this is what started the gangs in New York. Not the gangs in LA. The gangs in LA are started by the FBI and the CIA. The gangs in New York were offshoots. They were offshoots of the Black Panther Party, the splintered Black Panther Party. Young people, fans of the Black Panther Party started gangs. And the gangs in New York were not gangs running up, shooting, and stealing. These gangs protected their neighborhoods, just like the Black Panthers taught. And so you had gangs like the Savage Skulls and the Tomahawks and the Black Spades, and all of these different gangs. And these gangs, we knew them. And they were our heroes in the hood because they were the ones that were protecting us. The cops was definitely the enemy. And these gangs, the cops feared them because what they were willing to do. So we looked up to them. Wow, stop. This is where hip-hop gets its gang culture history from. When you open up most of the books written on hip-hop, the first place it starts is gang culture. That's a lie. As a matter of fact, it's not a lie. It's unscholarly. Hip-hop doesn't start in gang culture. Gang culture starts in hip-hop. Or should I say it stops, but I'll get there later. But no, hip-hop doesn't start in gang culture. Hip-hop starts in African-American, Latino, and poor white communities. Now, underline this last part, poor white. What do we know about hip-hop? We know that all of this was started by black people. Wrong. What do we know about hip-hop? Oh, we know that the father of hip-hop is Kool Herc, and he started hip-hop in the Bronx. Wrong. Well, what do we know about hip-hop? Well, we know that, no. What we know about hip-hop is what other people have interpreted hip-hop to be, but they themselves were not the culture. This is why this course is number one. This is the first time I'm actually explaining all this. This is the first time. That's why this course is the first course of its kind. Hopefully you guys will take this authority, and teach hip-hop to others. I'll show you why the importance. But first, so Kool Herc, and I'm going to end this, show you the icon, show you the consciousness. Breaking, MCing, graffiti, or DJ, these things existed before hip-hop. Kool Herc was already that. Kool Herc was already this to himself. Imagine one dude walking around. He's an MC, DJ, graffiti writer, and a b-boy all at once. And he's walking around normal. It's just me. It's how I get down. No big deal. It's just me. His sister says, yo, play some music. And he goes out, oh, I like James Brown, so I'm going to hit James Brown. Well, you want to bust the floor? 1, 2, 3. Little dudes like me, when he finally came outside to the park, we got a chance to see him. And now we out there looking like, wow, I want to bust the floor. 1, 2, 3. Kool Herc would be on the mic, jamming with the jammers, rocking with the rockers. Kool Herc. And it would be all like for miles in the Bronx you would hear this. Miles. Herc had the biggest sound system probably in the United States at the time. I mean, that's what they called it, the Herculoids. It was Kool Herc and the Herculoids. And those Herculoids was his sound system. And it would boom this music out. And Kool Herc would turn up the bass, and it would just get ridiculous. And we would be there, and this one dude was giving us all this. And we was like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like that. And we're looking at it like, wow, look at this dude. And he's on the mic, rapping, DJing, and we knew he was a graffiti writer because his name was everywhere. And we was like, wow, that's Kool Herc. Then he was big, he was muscular, they called him Hercules in the hood. He had mad respect across New York. This was the man. And what he did, his one joy, he said, and this is why Kool Herc is the father of hip hop. Because there were other DJs at the time, Mandingo, Elvis 007, DJ Maboya, Pete the DJ Jones. These DJs were all Grandmaster Flowers. These DJs were already out and big. But Kool Herc played for free. You can see Herc for 25 cents if you like, down at the Hebelo. Name of a club we used to play at. But Herc would come out on a Friday night in the park and play James Brown for free. And us little dudes would get up there and try to b-boy and do our thing and rap and whatever. And from there, now look at this, Kool Herc just wanted to play us, the little guys, music. He said the times in which we're living in is so ridiculous, and he knew he was an activist in the community, him and his sister. They knew what the times was like, and they said this is one way to get these kids together, to keep them out of what's going on. This was their intention. And they said, take your DJing that you did at the Hevelo, at the clubs, and in the community center, bring it out to the park and let the young kids get it. And he did. And when he played for free, we all got inspired. Now, what does this mean? First, person like me, I'm forever indebted to Kool Herc. Others who may not have been there may have a different take on it. Like today, you start your rap career from, New Orleans or whatever, or Seattle. You were born and raised in Seattle. You start your career from here. You may not feel the same way, and that is respect. Now, of course, as a scholar, you have to discipline yourself to feel the same way. But if you don't, this is why we don't criticize. Because I was there, and a couple of other million people were there too at the very beginning of this, and we watched it. And when Kool Herc gave us this, he came for free and gave us these elements because that's who he was. So we mimicked who he was. And some of us couldn't do everything. Some of us only could do the b-boying part. Some of us only could do the MCing part. Some of us only could do the DJing part. And this is when you get these elements, these separate elements from Kool Herc was all of them. Now, when Kool Herc delivers hip-hop to us through his being, we was grateful. Why? We're broke in the street with nothing. We don't know what the politics is, but we know it's a dangerous world out there. And when people come and say, yo, come on over here and party, it's safe over here. Kool Herc created a safe space for the little dudes that was in the Bronx and didn't have nothing. Now, when he did that, we was grateful, and every rhyme we did, we'd say, Kool Herc, this goes out to Kool Herc. This goes out to Kool Herc. Every rhyme we would ever do is Kool Herc. At the same time, the Kool Herc was inventing hip-hop, inspiring hip-hop. At the same exact time, there were others. I'm not going to call names because this is a historical event. But I will say, you can look them up yourself. Major athletic stars that turned their back on the youth. The dream of Dr. Martin Luther King to deal with economic issues in the hood. His next deal after civil rights, or continuation of civil rights, was to deal with poverty. But others, part of his camp, the minute he was assassinated, forgot about Dr. King's mission against poverty. Dr. King assassinated in 68, here's hip-hop in 73. Nobody's thinking about us. Malcolm X dead, nobody thinking about us. Malcolm X taught self-reliance, self-creation. Ain't nobody teaching us that. We little dudes in the street, running around, some of us getting shot, some of us getting arrested, others of us doing hip-hop. Any one of us could have died at any time. I'm just here by the grace. Any one of us, I am here by the grace of God. There is nothing more. The times in which we were living in, only a divine hand could have got us out. That's later. But right now, the divinity we were looking at is this dude over here, Kool Herc. Right here, this guy. Him. This is a 90s picture of him. But this is Kool Herc. This dude right here is a god, straight up. When we was, again, 8, 7, He voluntarily said, yo, this is who I am. You like it? We was like, hell yeah. Breaking MC, right? We doing this. This is 1973. Kevin Donovan is the leader of the Black Spades gang in New York. The Black Spades is the biggest gang in New York City. Most powerful. Kevin Donovan goes to Africa. Now, I'm going to breeze over this because now I'm going to speed up. If you have the consciousness, then you'll understand. The consciousness is, we stand upon our founders. We try to be better than them. We don't worship them. You can if you want, I do. But we give them the ultimate respect. And I'm going to show you why later. But these dudes, now, Kevin Donovan, leader of the Black Spades gang in New York, UNICEF has a writing essay. Whoever wins the writing essay on Africa gets to go to Africa. Gang leader, Kevin Donovan, joins their writing essay. Gang leader, Kevin Donovan, joins the writing essay. He takes the writing essay and passes. In fact, he smacks everybody else that was writing down. Kevin Donovan then goes to Africa. He gets to Africa. An African chief says, what you African Americans are doing in the United States is the same thing Africa has been doing for thousands of years. And that's destroying yourselves through tribalism. This is what BAM learned. That's what we call it, BAM. Africa BAM Bottas is full name. But when he was Kevin Donovan, he was told, this tribal thing y'all got going on in the United States, with African Americans and Latinos and whites and this and that, all of y'all just fighting each other, this civil rights thing, because it was still prevalent in 73, 74. People were still looking for freedom. And he was over there in Africa and he got told, all that gang thing y'all on, that's just tribalism. Y'all all getting set up. And he opened his eyes. He changed his name from Kevin Donovan and became Africa Bambaataa. And he flew back to the United States. And when he got to the United States, he did something really remarkable. He told every gang in the United States, put down your colors and start breaking them, seeing graffiti, writing, and DJing like Cool Herc. And you know what happened? Everybody did it. Now, could you imagine? I want you to really get this. You're the leader of one gang, which means you're fighting every other gang. You come back from Africa with a new consciousness. You tell your enemies, not your friends. You're telling enemies, yo, I just got back from Africa. Here's the deal, we all killing each other, ain't nobody gonna eat, we all gonna die. Let's change our minds about this. Leaders of the Savage Skulls, Latino-based group, Savage Nomads, La Familia, all of them was like, yo, bam, word. It's time. Let's put this gun down. And it was a major reconciliation of gangs in New York in 1975. Everybody put the rag down. Everybody put the gun down. Why? Because Africa Bambaataa taught all the gangs in New York that tribalism is going to get us all killed. They heard him, agreed, and disbanded all their gangs. The ones that had artistic skill joined Zulu Nation, Africa Bambaataa's new organization. In fact, when he came back from Africa, it was first called the organization. Then he named it Zulu Nation later. In 74, well, it's like the same year, 74, you get the organization, and then it's modified to Zulu Nation. And Zulu Nation is where all